Thanks, Sebastian. Yeah, I think it did turn out pretty well. Not a pure white, just kind of an off-white that you can tell it's a bone, but I don't think bones are pure white anyway. So if you're here, welcome back. I'm just going to keep on working on this mage. As what the polls said, they wanted me to keep working on this mage. But before I start on that, I do want to apologize. I said yesterday I would show one of my past works, which I didn't. So I'm going to pull that out now before I start working on this. So this is the Fabled Bartholomew, the 32mm knight that everyone liked. This kind of blue and the white with the terse and the little cape. This came in a set of 10, 2 of each type of knight. So when you hear that name dropped in the chat, this is who people are talking about. For some reason, this knight is one that drew a lot of people's attention. So be it. I'm glad that they did. So if I ever add like emojis to the chat and things like that, I'll definitely add some kind of like helmet shots of this with some kind of like a question mark or an exclamation mark or something that people can use while still paying their not respect, but the homage to our good friend there. So just so you can kind of get in with what people are talking about when you hear that name here. It's not an actual person. Just going to touch up some of this off-white color here. Some areas that may have been left out by accident. Let's touch those up. Base of the skull. But we did get a lot done yesterday, so there's not too much to really touch up on. And I hope this layout's a little bit better than yesterday. I know it was kind of funky. I'm liking this kind of top down for I can just do what I do and then not have to worry about moving the camera or making things look better because you can already see what's going on. Too much paint there. Smaller brush then. Touch up, I got too much paint in the nose. I don't want that to get covered up. Okay. I'll get a little bit of that purple and have touch up some of these yellow spots. And then I think we will start getting on that spell. I can use my little brush for this. I'm just going to touch up where some of this yellow leaked off yesterday, it happens. Not a huge deal, we can fix it. It may take a couple layers, but that's fine. I'm going to do this part last. It's so... Sorry. I'm going to do this part last. Excuse me. It's a little bit small. I'll go in with some detail with that kind of a yellowy color and add that in. So while we're waiting for that to dry, I'll get some of the white. So I plan to do with this spell, if you weren't here last night, is I'm going to do it in white, just pure white, and then go from a very watery, a lighter green to a less watery, darker green to give it a nice glowing effect so that it looks like the spell is actually, you know, glowing. And I'll cast some of that light on the clothes too. So for this, we will just use pure white. I'm just doing that off camera here, my little palette. Not very interesting, so I don't think you're missing too much. But white is pretty much the weakest color ever, so we'll need to do quite a few layers of it to actually let it stick. Which is probably too watery anyway. A little watery, but it's okay. So the idea behind the watery, or the white, is that wherever the light's the brightest on your model, it's going to be more white and less of the color, because that's where the most intense light is at. So if you make a really light glaze, just like, you know, a really light colored green, which is what I'm going to use for this color, it'll look a little more believable. Then as you move away from that light source, that becomes more of the base color, so more green in this case. Kind of hard to wrap your head around until you actually see it. It's kind of hard to kind of explain unless you have an idea of what's going to look like. I want kind of a bright green spell to be on here. This will take a couple layers, so we'll let that dry and we'll just continue on. Just touching up some more of this purple here. Populate some more of that purple out. Just double check this one in the front. A little bit of spillage, which just happens with these. I'm just touching up where the yellow shouldn't be. Just putting some purple on it. So there are some bones popping out through his robe, so I will try to add some color to those too. I'll have to go over that with some purple, that's fine. We'll touch it up once it dries. Sometimes these raises are kind of hard to get, you know, they're not raised enough, so you can't just like go over the brush. You have to kind of just go over the entire shape, and it makes it a little more difficult. Get another layer of that white on the spell. And it's always better to go thin, especially when you're doing white. It's so easy to say, oh, white's a really weak color, I'll just make it super thick, and then it ends up just sticking to every crevice, and then you can't see the actual detail. So, when in doubt, go thin. There's no harm in making it too thin. It would just take you longer. It's not going to affect the final colors. So here's how we're looking so far. I think he's turned out pretty good. But of course, it's just the base color. We will add some different shading as we go on. But right now, I just want all the base colors. And then we'll go back in and add some darker spots, some lighter spots, based on where the light would be hitting this model. Thanks, Sebastian. Yeah, me too. I think he's coming out pretty well. So while that white's drying, I'll show what my other one is. So I kind of touched on this briefly last night. So this is a set of two. They're not from the same anything, it's just from the same person. But this, I also got an undead rider, or like a cavalry. And so it's not fully glued together, but it's a bannerman, so he would be carrying the banner into battle. So my plan for this one is to make all of the metal areas a little bit of worn plus rusty. I would kind of like this actually to look pretty worn down, you know, like pretty rusted and used, as I do with all my models. But if you have an undead, you know, soldier, I would think that they've seen battle, their armor is not going to be perfect. Cadavel. Sam has joined the chat with her puns. How's it going, Sam? Thanks for joining. So this is the other one, yep. So once we finish the mage, I'll move on to this one. Then I hope to make it look pretty good with that rusty color. So that white's still drying, so we'll just wait for that to dry completely. No, you're good, Sam. We all have our own life. Just to kind of catch you up if you weren't here last night. So this was all primed black, and we got everything but the white on the spell last night. So we got the purple, the yellow, and the bone white. I guess the mummy robes, which is the bone white in this case. So I would like it to be kind of like a necromancy spell. That's kind of the head canon that came in when I got this. Because since I got these two together, I figured, you know, the spell could be raising this creature from his grave. Thank you, Sam. And so I've been working on the base for the rider. Hopefully this comes out well in the video. So the base is kind of like a dirty, like, cobble path. Oops, sorry. Hopefully you can see, like, the detail on there. I kind of added some depth, some moss, some dirt. I want to make this look like a really ancient tomb that, you know, or an ancient grave that he's running on top of, because how the base will be, it will be like this. So it seems like, you know, he's leaving his grave and going out. Thank you, Sam. I was very happy with how I turned this out. I was pretty impressed with my patience on this. You know, I'm not perfect, but I can tell I'm getting better with each model. And that's what matters. I looked up a bunch of pictures of worn down gravestones. I just kind of used that as a base. Okay, I'm going to do like one more white layer. That may cover our bases here. Can touch up some of this bone area while we're waiting for that white. So his robe has some exposed bones, so I'm just trying to... I might just go over this again with the purple to kind of hide my boo-boos. And then we'll go back over it with the white, or the mummy robe, sorry, and it's a very off-white, a cream-colored white. Oops. Hopefully that wasn't too loud. I've been learning a whole lot about how the streaming works for YouTube. I didn't realize you have to use, if you're using the external software, not just your web camera, you have to run it through a third party, which is totally fine, but I'm just learning more about that, and it's a journey, you know? So I hope to get a little more bells and whistles as I do more, you know, get a template, you know, to have on the front maybe, or when someone joins the channel, have something pop up and say, this person joined the channel, and have some kind of little graphic. And also some chat emojis, that would be cool too. Yeah, it's a whole nother world I'm not really in tune with. Because I watch people, you know, I watch people make their videos and I'm like, oh, that's cool, and then I realize, oh, there's like different layers, and they have themselves put on top of the base layer, and then they're streaming off that screen, but they have like 4 more monitors so they can see all the other stuff. Kind of crazy if you think about how much goes in that, but I'm not going to go that in depth with it, but add a couple little heres and theres. These darker spots that aren't quite taking the paint. Just touch those up. Okay, let that dry, and I think we'll be able to start putting the green on there. I kind of want it like a ghostly green, so I'll put out some colors and I will ask for help in the chat. That was good. Okay. So the idea is you get kind of like a brighter green, or a brighter base color. You mix that with white, and that's kind of around the general light source. And then as you move away from that light source, you get darker. And then any light that's cast onto the model is a darker base color, but in a very thin. So it looks like the light's coming off of it. So I've got this green. You can see on the top I put a bit of a swatch on each top. I think dark green's too dark. So those are the greens I would probably use for this palette, so what do you all think I should go with? Should I go with the darker green, which is right here, the more medium green right here, or that kind of a lighter green right here? That's a good question. I think I used Goblin Green for that. So I think that would probably, in theory, match better. Alright, so I will use the Goblin Green. Here. The sun goes here. Oh, the brightest green. Snake. It's called Snake Scales. Yeah, maybe that one might be, like, when you think of magic, you think of like a brighter color, so maybe the Snake Scales then. We'll see how it looks. I have a super bright green, but I think that's way too yellow. You can barely see it on the video. It's like a neon. I think it's too neon to have as the base. Zombie, yeah. Alright, so I'm going to begin the process here. So off camera what I'm doing is that, well, maybe I'll... That's what I'm currently working with this little gloop right here. So what we're going to do is that we're going to add water and then white. So we want this to be mostly white, this first layer. Oh, get out of there. Okay. So we call this a glaze, so super thin. It's even thinner than a wash. because we want that white to show through. So you want it to be mostly white. So I'm going to thin out that white. And I'll borrow a little bit of this green. Come here. Okay. Just like that. Roll that, get that nice color rolled through. And we want this to be pretty watery still. So we can even add a little bit more water elsewhere, like right here. And then we can borrow some of this and get that nice and watery. I'm just trying to get a nice, spread. Okay. Now we've got that really light green here. So then I'm going to say the light source is pretty much all of the interior, So these little arms will be darker. So I'm just going to get some more of that green. Not sure if you can see on camera, but it's kind of like a minty green now. It's like just barely any green. Mostly white still. Move that palette off camera now that you've seen what I've done, so I have a little more space. But now we have that minty green on that base layer. So I'm going to let that dry. Whoa, don't do that. I guess that's fine. You can rest right there. You've had a long day, you can rest. So we'll just add some more green to the next layer, but still kind of white, and we'll kind of build that up as we move away from that light source. And if we do it correctly, so I've only done it once, so I'm no expert at it, you'll see that kind of glowing effect as you have those thin, darker layers coming away from it, and we'll have some of that green on the mage. We'll see how it comes out. I hope that it does what I'm hoping it to. Just to give you an example of what I tried, I didn't do it correctly, I guess, with this other one. It was too thick, but one of the minis I did on my last live on Tumblr, I was doing these guys, and so I kind of wanted that glowing effect. I think the basis of the idea was right for this, but I think my layers are just too thick still. So it looks like I just painted the color, which is what I did. And it should be a lot of thin layers, so it kind of looks, you can still see the red in this case, but there's a blue ghostly tint to it. But we will see how that goes now that I've known what to not do. Hopefully that will help. And thank you, Sam. I do appreciate it. So mint green, still pretty minty. So I'll just work on those bones while we're waiting. Got a couple ribs popping out. This last rib is being a pain. There we go. So now we've got his ribs. Thank you. Yeah, every little bit helps, you know. Every little chat helps. I'll still let that dry. So this kind of minty spot here is still pretty wet. So we'll let that dry. Smooth some of this still. So what have you two been into lately? Any new stuff? New fandoms? What have you two been up to lately? Awesome. Excuse me. That'll be cool. I didn't know that they had one of those for that game franchise. I played Fallout, I think it was 3. And I got like a little bit into it, but it just wasn't for me, even though it's the same brand as like Elder Scrolls, which I love. It's just not my usual game style, but it's a cool game. Like what's the word? It's like a cool concept, though. Still a little bit wet. It's getting there, though. I can imagine. Plus, it's your brand new. It's brand new to you, so you need to figure out that too. The rules or not rules, but how things work and what you can and can't do. Oh no, Sam. That's not good. That you're getting all pooped out. Birds are cool, although they're very strange too. Yeah, it's kind of freaky how some of these birds have these really grandiose ways of trying to find a mate. I wouldn't say freaky, just really different. Bartering with fish. Like, I will give you one guppy to be my bride. Like a dowry, but I guess the opposite. It's like, I will pay you to be with me instead of paying to have you. I guess that is kind of the same thing though, huh? A fowry. So you measure the bird's worth in fish. Oh yeah, that bird's worth 5 trout. Whereas this bird's only worth 1. You'll have to ask Dan, Sam. Ask him. How many fish am I worth? Their fowry price. We need to keep a log of all these things that we have in this chat, so we can have these little niche, like either emojis or something that we can, have like something in the chat for things that happen in the future. Oh, I didn't know that was actually part of the dowry. I knew it was like a payment toward the bride's family. A minnow or a shark. These are the very important things, what type of fish. Because fish are pretty diverse. There's definitely tiered fish. Like a high tier fish versus a low tiered fish. The fish was us all. Like a Scooby-Doo thing. Let's see who this person really is. It's a fish. Seaspiracy. What fish would you want to be worth? What fish has a lot of value in your mind? Ooh, coelacanth. That's a pretty cool choice. The living fossils. A tuna. Ah, yes. The chicken of the sea. But is it chicken or is it fish? That is the age-old question. Is that a nose? Sam, you smelling the tuna? Why are you smelling the tuna? Yeah, we need her here. The pro. Thanks, Sebastian. You're pretty funny too in our chats. Sam's always been funny though, since I've known her. I got you, Sam. I didn't really realize like how big those fish are, though. They're very large fish. I can't remember if the Monterey Aquarium has one. I feel like I've seen a tuna there, but maybe I'm just making stuff up. Okay, that's what I thought. I think they're in the open ocean exhibit. That would be awesome if they did have them there. I forgot where they're found. It's not in the Monterey Bay though. I think they're I don't want to say like they're tropical, but I think they're on like it's an Asian or European coast. But maybe I'm wrong. See a little bit of the green starting to come out now. Maybe on your screen it's kind of like a darker minty green now. Once that dries, we'll get a little bit darker, a little bit more of the actual green color, and kind of go on the edges, and then we'll keep going. Japanese fish market, maybe. I don't know off the top of my head. Does it look kind of spooky? That green color? Yes, you're right, Sam. You are totally right. My brain's full of bug data. I could tell you the hierarchy of a certain taxon from Kingdom, but I can't tell you where does a certain fish live. But taking that class was many years ago. My vertebrate natural history course, that's when I would have learned that. That was eons ago. Disgraceful. No second breakfast for you, Sam. I'm sorry. That comment says no more second breakfast for you. Oh my gosh, teach the bugs about fish. The bugs that I work with, they didn't know about fish like trout and stuff, as that's what eats them. So they know some fish, but not the fish that we would like them to know about. Lambus bread for you only, Sam, I'm sorry. The bug roster. Which bugs actually come up to the class? Dang it. Jumping spiders are pretty intelligent. They would probably want to learn. Especially the genus Portia. They are currently the world's smartest, and that's in quotes, spider. All the jumpers are pretty curious, that whole group. The salticids are pretty curious. They'll chase a laser pointer, just like cats. Because they can see the waves. They can see that wavelength, so they think it's something else, and they just go and they kind of go after it and chase it. And they don't mind being held, and also that's kind of putting them into a human box, but they will hop onto your hand. You know, they won't fight. I've only had one of them rear up at me once. That's because she was gravid, so she didn't want anyone coming near her because she had a bunch of babies in her. That's the only time I've been reared up at by a jumping spider, so they're very docile. I'm always compelled to kind of pick them up. I'm like, oh, look at you, Scoop. and they kind of cock their head and go, hmm? So it's super cool to see that in real life. They are, yep. It's a specific genus of them. They're pretty cool that they do that dance. But most spiders have a dance as their nuptial kind of, I guess we'd call it a ritual. Since spiders can't hear, or they can't really smell, they go off of how things feel. So those little dance moves are a certain, just kind of like a song. Genius that has a genes. That's pretty good. So if the song is played well, they usually mate. If the song is poor, the male gets either scared off or eaten, or both. Because if he's not a good mate, he's a good meal. That's the spider mantra. Nope, they don't have ears. So they can feel you though if you walk into a room. So they kind of like hear you, but they kind of get like a mental image of where the vibrations are coming from. They can kind of get your size, like, oh, this is a person. You know, they're much too large for me, and then they'll go off and hide. Or something small, like I could probably eat that, and then they're not as worried about it. Yeah, because you don't want to put them in that box. You know, you don't want to give them human. Like they don't, you know, as far as we know, they don't have higher thought. They don't feel, you know, certain types of things. So it makes you feel kind of hard to, makes you feel kind of challenged to talk about that. Like, what do they feel? What do they see? So you can only know what they kind of perceive. So I'll try to put some of the reflection on the clothing. We'll see how that looks. This small spot. I'm not going to go super in depth in case it's not correct. See how that looks once it dries. If we like it, we'll figure it out. If not, we'll just go back over it with purple. That's a good question. I'm not sure if they do taste like they would prefer one prey item over the other. The only thing I've really read, there was a paper many years ago. They had a couple different spiders, and they fed crickets a bunch of food that was high in phosphorus and high that was in nitrogen. And at first they let the spider, have a choice of either of both prey items. And based on which one they chose, they only fed it that one for a while. And then after some point they put both of the prey items back, and then the spider would choose the opposite because that is what its body needs. That's the only thing I've known, like they would prefer different stuff based on what nutrients they would gain from it. And yeah, tarantulas are pretty. They rely on those hairs. That's why they're so hairy. Because all spiders have those hairs, but the T's, they have theirs more. They're more reliant on them because their eyes are really terrible. Their eyes are just light versus dark. They don't have any kind of good vision. So those hairs kind of give them all of their outer world knowledge. The spiders blew your mind, Sam. All about them. You can learn a lot from them. They're a really cool creature. That's true. Yeah, they have food versus not food, so that could be a basis of taste. But I think everybody kind of does that. I think that's like a basic. I won't say a skill. It's like a basic drive or instinct. Because when I was in the field for my master's, we were out in the desert for 3 months. And I was in Arizona for like 2 weeks. And we were just out in the middle of nowhere, We were getting desert bugs. And my field partner and I, we both had this craving for like a super greasy, salty hamburger. Because we lost so much sweat and so much salt and ions. I think that's our body was saying, hey, I know that this is super salty and greasy, go get it because that will get you what you need. But that kind of goes back to it is a form of sense because we know food versus not food and what our body needs. So I'm just trying to get some more of that green. I'm trying to go a little bit darker now. This is more of an experiment, see if this yields what we're trying to get here. So I'm getting most of the paint off my brush. It's getting like a super, what we call a glaze, like super watered down. So we'll see how that looks. I'll put some on here too. This is still a new technique to me, so I'm still learning as I'm doing this. I may just go back over the, get rid of all the stuff on the rope and just make it all the same base once more, and then just redo it later if it's not right, which is totally fine. I'm still learning on how to do this new style. It's a bunch of layers. That's kind of what I've been reading about this. It's just a bunch of layers of color. A lot of thin layers is what make it pop. So we will see if I have the layers. A 4-day weekend, huh? Does that start tomorrow? So you begin to be off tomorrow? Yeah, I have to get used to working like this thin. I usually do thinning paint, but this is super thin. This is almost nothing. It's just mostly water. Oh wow, okay, so you've got a very long weekend. And kind of a mid-week start next week. Because you'll end up having only a 3-day work week next week then too. That'll be great. And you just learned that now? Oh, so you put in some time off. Okay, I thought it was like a random holiday. I was like, well, that's cool. That's still cool though. You get a nice long weekend, super long weekend, actually. I get it now. So you had it lined up, but you just forgot that it was there, and then you're like, oh yeah, that's right. It's a nice little surprise, though, that past you did for current you. Alright, I know that this wasn't as eventful as last night. It was most just working on this. But, you know, those little pieces take time because you're doing these thin layers and you're getting it up. So, I will continue to work on this. I may do some stuff off camera. I may not. So my next stream will be sometime next week. I like Monday or Tuesday, probably. And we'll continue to work on whatever we're doing that day. So thanks for joining. It's always great to chat with you two. So I hope to see you on the next one, and I will see you all next time. Have a good night.